Our next guest is the Second Amendment writer for Breitbart News, Dr. AWR Hawkins, and he joins us now. What's going on, man?
Hey, not a lot. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful day here in Dallas. How's the things going on your end?
Yeah, well, I'm in Louisville, and I think Noah's building an ark outside right now. So either that or somebody's going to Walmart to buy a bunch of kayaks. That's about what we're dealing with.
Fair enough, fair enough. So now you recently wrote about a stand your ground laws. Why do you think they're suddenly being called into question in some states?
Well, Minnesota. How do you describe Minnesota? A purple state? I mean, it has a lot of gun rights supporters, but they vote for a lot of Democrats. So it's a purple state in that way. And Mike Bloomberg's pumping money in against Stand Your Ground. That's what it boils down to. Every town for gun safety is pushing all this stuff. If they have Stand Your Ground, it's going to be violence. People are going to get shot because of the way they dressed. All this, they're throwing all that out. When in reality, it's just like you and I have talked about so many times about campus carry. There are hard facts we can look at. We can go, well, what has happened in Florida? What has happened in Florida? And when you look at the facts, you go, wow, black citizens have benefited more from Stand Your Ground than white citizens. So all of this sky's falling stuff, it's just more, I hate to use the phrase, but just more fake news from the gun lobby, the gun control lobby, excuse me. And the gun control lobby's got Bloomberg's money, so they keep saying it.
Yeah, and for the people who are a little bit confused as to why AWR Hawkins pointed out the fact that Stand Your Ground laws have been beneficial to black people, it's because a lot of the rhetoric being put out there is basically saying that the Stand Your Ground laws are disproportionately affect black people in a negative way than they do in a more positive way. So just for people out there wondering, like, well, that came out of nowhere.
I thank you for doing that. Yeah, see, in my mind, when I read that Minnesota story, I already know it's an extension of those old arguments.
Exactly.
And I should have been better with presenting that. You're 100% right. So that is where it comes from. For those of you that don't know, the argument against Stand Your Ground always comes down. It's just like when the left runs out of an argument to defend privatizing Social Security. If you're for it, you're a racist.
Yeah.
Well, if you're for Stand Your Ground, ultimately they run to you're a racist and this is going to hurt black people. And in reality, and I think this is important to understand. In reality, laws that bolster self-defense help the black community, and that's demonstrable through police records, not through my opinion. And I think that's important.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. I remember when we were at the height of the Stand Your Ground conversation back when we were dealing with the Trayvon Martin situation, and a lot of people were shocked to realize how beneficial Stand Your Ground laws have been. Well, how many people of color have used Stand Your Ground laws to their benefit, and to be honest with you, I think sometimes the Stand Your Ground laws. The Stand Your Ground laws, so to speak, the perception they have, kind of gives it's a negative one. Simply because of the name in many ways, because people think it's, oh, no, any slight offense, I'm in a position now where I can pull out my gun and shoot you, when it's a very elementary concept. It's the idea that I was here living my life, I wasn't bothering you, but you have now put me in a position where now I feel like my life is genuinely and honestly threatened or seriously bodily injury is threatened. Therefore, now I'm in a position now legally where I don't have to determine in a flash of a moment, how far do I need to retreat in order to say that I'm justified?
Right.
You know, it's like it's at one point. It's like how many kicks to the head do I need to get before I can say, okay, I can pull out my gun and use it to defend myself? People who are good citizens who carry firearms to protect their lives with shouldn't be forced to become experts in the realm of determining at what point exactly verbatim they're in the position of losing their life or at the risk of bodily injury.
And something that's important to go with what you said, and this just dovetails. Every time for gun safety's argument, they call this the shoot first law, which is, to your point, shoot. But people have to understand, just because there's a Stand Your Ground law doesn't mean you can shoot. As you're saying, it's justifiable. You have to prove that Stand Your Ground covers what you did before Stand Your Ground covers what you did. So it's in no way a shoot first law. It's a law for rational people who are under serious duress, who as you just described, think they're going to lose their life. It's when you talk about shooting my gun, that's my last option. but that law is for people who have been pushed to the last option.
Yeah.
And so it's not going to be a shoot first law, and it never has been. I mean, you'll find exceptions in anything, but that's not how it works.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. So you also wrote about hackers uncovering the names of concealed carry permit holders in Florida.
Right.
um, any indication why they were targeted?
No, but they're still carry permit holders. I mean, if I were a hacker looking for a set of homes to rob, but of course then you'd have to know schedules because you don't want to walk in if the permit holder's
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
But I see the bigger problem. The NRAILA has done a great job in my mind, yeoman's work, getting out the problems we've had with so many centralized gun or firearm related databases. We've done that at Breitbart too. I think it was October 2016, California released the names of 3,500 firearm instructors, not just their names, but a lot of personal information. Well, people know what they probably have in their home, so it's the same situation. Sets them up for robbery. You have a situation in London, I believe it was last month, where the
Yep.
Alton police they sent out names of 30,000 gun owners and to third parties. So to me, that's even the larger problem. Is I think we get so comfortable with this that we forget the danger of a database, whether it's a registration database, which we all hate,
Yep.
or whether it's this kind of database.
Yeah.
Once we have our constitutional rights on some type of digitized database, man, we're susceptible,
Yeah.
and I think this shows it.
It's funny. It's when we talk about for instance, the idea of universal background checks. A lot of people, it's a hard argument to deduce as to why I'm against it. Largely because it's a logical process that you have to arrive at a conclusion that takes me time to explain. It's my show now, so I have some time to explain it.
Right.
but it all ultimately falls back on the idea of a registration.
Right.
And largely universal background checks don't work. They won't do anything to stop criminals from getting firearms. It's not even that they don't work that well. They do not work. Let's just put that out there. They don't work.
Right.
And then as a result of that, the only way to even make a universal background check enforceable, to even have the semblance of some type of enforceability, is to have a national gun registration.
Right.
To check it against. And at that point, I'm not okay with a national gun registration. Some people say, well, what's the problem with national gun registration? Well, herein lies one of the issues that you just pointed out within your story. So not only am I faced with the idea that every country, every power who has established a gun registration has abused and used and exploited that gun registration to take firearms from the citizens, period. And on top of that, now we also subject ourselves to our information, as you so beautifully pointed out, being susceptible to being placed out there into the world where criminals and people who can use that information to their advantage to come in and then burglarize or take the things that I have. Like, do you really think I want a database of every single gun that I own in my house to be out there just in a virtual space so that somebody can hack it and get it and then watch my life and then figure out when I'm leaving, when I'm coming in, so that they can go in there and steal my stuff? I'm sorry, I'm not okay with that.
Right, you shouldn't be, and you're exactly right for any listeners who are thinking about it. But this point with universal background checks, think about it. Sometimes it helps if you think about things outside of guns.
Yeah.
Just think, if we were doing universal background checks on apples, the only way I could know when you sold an apple or when you bought an apple is if I knew where every apple was at every moment of every day. That's common sense. And when you think about it that way, you think, yeah, that makes sense. Well, that's the same thing with the guns, and that's what we're talking about. If I want universal background checks for firearms, if I'm the government, the only way that's enforceable is if I know who every gun owner is, where they live, and where they have every gun. And by that, I mean at what address. Because if I don't know at what address, I really don't know if they're acquiring a new gun or if they're selling a gun. It's got to be not only a registration, but very in-depth registration.
Yep.
And so universal background checks are insidious. And they, as you say, they don't work. That's point A. That's all we should need. But for people who need more argument, just understand they're insidious and they want to put them in place not for the background checks,
No.
but for the registration.
Yep. And the beautiful thing about that, there's a beautiful example of the flaws of a background, not a background check, but a universal of a gun registration. And it was played out perfectly in The Walking Dead. And it was that episode where Negan went into the compound and he said, "We need your guns." And of course, they kept a registration of all the guns, or an inventory of all the guns that they had there. He went on there. He checked them against all the guns that he stole or was taking, and he realized there's a gun missing. There's no other way for him to know that except for what? Having that inventory list there. And then he proceeded to, kill people in order to get that one gun, or threaten to kill people, so forth and so on. But if you haven't seen it, Walking Dead, there's a scene. I don't remember what episode. Just you guys are resourceful. Y'all will find it. But nonetheless, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue talking with AWR Hawkins.